Let's start with some comments. If this is your first foray into PHP, then congratulations. PHP is a wonderful language, and whenever I do work with it, I'm continually amazed at its features. Very nice. It's very Perl-like, but it seems a lot easier to use than Perl in some respects. Specific to this presentation, we discuss how PHP automatically resolves variables placed within a text string to the variable's actual value. This is a very nice feature which allows you to avoid concatenation, which can be quite messy. If you're familiar with the statistical language SAS and their macro variable resolution, then you will instantly recognize this particular feature. In the interest of full disclosure, I am not a professional PHP programmer by any stretch of the imagination, but I have used it several times for websites as well as a scripting language, so it's very, like I said, it's very nice, and yeah, I've been using it for quite a while, but not super professional programmer. The version of PHP used to create this presentation is 5.4.5 on Windows. What is simple substitution? Well, given the following variable, $var1 equals the word boink, how can we output the line, did you say boink? One way to do this is with concatenation via the period operator. Echo, did you say, and in quotes, then you have period for the concatenation, $var1, another period to continue the concatenation, double quotes, question mark, and the new line character, and the ending quote and semicolon. The problem with concatenation that it produces cumbersome and hard to read code. It's kind of hard because of all the periods and everything. An alternate method is to use simple substitution within a full text string. For example, here's simple substitution, echo, did you say, and in the double quotes you have $var1, which is the variable name up here, and the question mark. And note that the code above is more readable because the variable is part of the text. There's no periods and all this stuff. This is very difficult to read, prone to error because sometimes, I know I do it. I miss out on the periods and I compile it, run the program, and it yells at me. In this case, it's very nice. It's part of the text, which is nice. So simple substitution allows you to include your variable with its prepended $sign within a double quoted text string. We talk about single quoted text strings later on in the presentation. For both simple substitution and complex substitution, you must use a double quoted text string, otherwise you won't get the variable resolution that you want. Once PHP reaches this double quoted text string, and any $sign prepended variable within it will be replaced with its corresponding value. So example number one, given the following two variables, SURL is just Google's website URL, and then just the title is just Google. And given a string involving simple substitution of these two variables, I have $stab, which is in double quotes all of this HTML, table HTML, and then I have the ending quote right here, and then the semicolon ending the line. So this is the beginning of the string, and that's the ending of the string, and in between is all of the actual text. Now you'll notice that all of the double quotes in between here have been escaped with the backslash symbol, so PHP doesn't go nuts about it. And then, more importantly, we have $SURL, and then $STTL. This is the simple substitution syntax, which will then be replaced with the actual values. In this case, the red $SURL is replaced with what you expect it to be, http://www.google.com, and then the $STTL is just replaced with just the word Google. What can't you do with simple substitution? Now, when using simple substitution, your variable within the text string must be followed by either a blank or other non-alphanumeric character. Otherwise, PHP will not be able to find the variable, find your variable, and will output nothing as the variable's value. For example, let's output the text, did you say boinks? And here we have an S at the end of that using the following code. $var1 is still set to the word boink, but echo is now, did you say $var1, that's our variable here, and then the S for the pluralization of the word boink. Notice that we have added the character S here after $var1. That's because we want to display the word boinks, but PHP will actually look at this and say, here's a variable, we're in double quotes, here's a variable starting with a $, var1s. Okay, here's something that's not really part of a normal variable name, question mark, so I'm going to end the search, $var1s, and PHP will search for $var1s. And of course, if it's not defined, which it most likely won't be, it'll remove this string completely, and what you'll wind up with is, did you say nothing here, and then question mark. So if you've defined $var1s somewhere else in the program, then that value will be replaced here, of course. So if $var1s is the word Bob, it would be, did you say Bob, question mark. Okay. Example number 2, a simple substitution example with problems. So given the following two variables, $SURL is Google's website URL, and $STTL is just Google. And this following string, $SURL here, same string as before, by the way. And then we're going to do $STTL. We want to pluralize it for Google's website. I don't have an apostrophe there. I'm being purposely grammatically incorrect, on purpose, of course. What will the output be? Well, PHP will not find $STTLS. Here's a blank right here. It's actually $STTL. There is no $STTLS, so this particular string is lopped off. This blank you see here is actually this blank up here, followed by the word website. Okay, so that's an issue with simple substitution. So, what is complex substitution? As we've seen, simple substitution only gets you so far. When you attempt to put an alphanumeric character next to a variable, PHP fails to find the correct variable. With complex substitution, the problem mentioned above is solved by surrounding the variable name, as well as the $, by the way, with curly braces, this left curly brace and a right curly brace. Now, you can happily follow this syntax, that is the ending curly brace, with an alphanumeric character like an S for pluralization, and PHP will still be able to find the variable because you've surrounded the whole thing in curly braces. So, for example, given the following two variables, same as before, $SURL, Google's website, the title is still Google, and the following text strings, same as before, except we have used complex substitution, left curly brace, $SURL, and right curly brace, and then left curly brace, $STTL, right curly brace, and then the S for the pluralization. What will the output be? Well, PHP will say, oh, here we have complex substitution, and anything in those curly braces are replaced with the appropriate value for that variable. So this becomes Google's website here, which appears here in red, and then this is the word Google, and then we have Google's website, without the apostrophe, of course. So here's another complex substitution. Now, this concept works with array elements as well. For example, given the following array, $A URL pieces, and the array is just made up of a bunch of text strings, http:// www, Google, com, and then Google's website with the appropriate syntax there, and a string involving complex substitution of these array elements. So in curly braces we have $A URL pieces, and then the 0th element, and then the first element, and then a period, because this represents www, then the period, then this will be Google, period, com, and then the actual name, and of course this was resolved to obviously the website and then Google's website. This syntax also should work fine with simple substitution as well. Obviously you're not going to be using the curly braces in that instance. So note that you can provide variables for array indices instead of hard-coding those values of 0, 1, and 2. So for example, here I have the same array as before. I have several values, several variables. Val 0 is set to 0, val 1 is 1, and so on. And same code as before, except instead of hard-coding 0, 1, 2, and so on, I have $val0, which will be replaced with 0, which will then resolve to http:// and so on and so forth up to $val4, which will resolve to 4, which will resolve to the fourth array element, which is this guy here. Instead of using a traditional array, you can use a map or a dictionary and use it in kind of the same manner. So here's an array using a map or dictionary idea. So scheme is mapped to http://. The URL is to Google's website. The site name is to Google's website name. And in this case, you can use the dictionary elements for scheme, URL, and site name. Similar as before, in brackets, you would put down scheme in quotes or single quotes, tick marks, URL and tick marks, and site name and tick marks. Okay. So let's talk about preventing substitution. So in the previous two sections, we mentioned that you must use double quotes, not single quotes, that is apostrophes or tick marks, in order for your variables to be resolved. So why would you use single quotes? Well, one reason I use single quoted strings is to defer the automatic substitution of variables within their values until a later time in the program when I want the substitution to occur, not when PHP wants the substitution to occur. If you're using double quotes, PHP will have the substitution resolve at that point when it feels like it, and I want to do it when I feel like it. Democracy, isn't it wonderful? For example, given the following string, same as before pretty much, complex substitution is curly braces, $SURL, and $STTL. Notice, though, I'm using single tick marks, apostrophes, one here and one there. I'm not using the double quotes, which actually makes things a little nicer because I don't have to have all those backslashes all over the place. Okay, so another reason that the tick marks, single tick marks, are nice. I can then resolve the variable's values within this string at the point I need it. Now, note that I can have entire include files containing these types of strings. So, for example, I did one program using Amazon's API for its books and all this other stuff. And instead of trying to code all this stuff in the program itself, I have include files that contain these variables, and then I include this text file, include file, that contains all this stuff in single quotes. So PHP is not going to resolve them. I then use the rescan idea, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. But this way, since everything's in an include file, I can then copy the text from here to here, the entire table thing here. If I want to make a change, I just copy this, make a blank text file, fill in what I need to, pop this in there, play with it until it looks the way I want it to look, and then put the code back into the include file with these replaced to the complex substitution. So that's one way I approach it. It may not be the best way. Let me know if you think you have a better way, which would be great. So in any case, sadly, PHP does not automatically rescan a single quoted string. There is no rescan function. It'd be nice if there were, but there isn't. And there's a way around this, which we'll talk about in a minute. Seems like it's a showstopper, but hold on to your hats. So one way to approach this is to just use the string replace function. In other words, you're going to take the value within the text string and replace it with your actual value. And you can use the str replace function to do that. So for example, here's the same string as before, single quoted of course. You can replace this complex, this string here and this string here with the variables using the string replace function. So $stab, which is the new replaced variable, I'm replacing the curly brace $SURL, curly brace, with the actual website URL, the full thing with the scheme, and then the title with Google's website name. Now notice that I'm using single tick marks for the complex substitution here because if you use double quotes, it will resolve this value, which is not what you want to occur, what you want to happen. In other words, think of it this way. I've seen several people, take this out and use, let's say, a tilde, and take this out and use the caret, the character above the number 6, the caret symbol, and then here you would put the tilde, and here you would put the caret, and it's like, well, when you get to it, what in the world is a caret? What does that all that mean? So it's a little bit more difficult to read. So even if I were just stuck with the string replace idea, I would probably use this syntax, knowing that it doesn't resolve, because it actually is readable. It's something nice that you can understand. SRL, oh, that's got to be the URL. STTL, that's got to be the site title or the site name. In any case, I'm leaving this in because, again, later on we will be able to force a rescan. So now, as you can probably immediately see, you will have to do this for every piece of code you want to replace. So if there are 10 things in here you want to replace, you've got to have 10 of these replace lines. That doesn't make for very nice code. Cutting and pasting of it, which you will do, and I do it too. You're prone to error. You're going to make a mistake, and it's just not. To me, it's just not professional code to have all these replaces repeated over and over and over again, especially when there might be a better way. So let's talk about the eval concept. So eval, even though it looks like a function, the PHP manual does not call it a function. It's kind of a construct, I believe they refer to it. So it's the eval construct. It looks like a function. It's not a function. They refer to it as a construct. So the eval construct accepts a text string as its only parameter, and PHP will interpret that string as PHP code and execute it. For example, given the following variable, $old equals 123, let's use eval to create a brand new variable called $new as just old plus 1, which the result should be 124. So $old is 123. Here's the eval construct, left paren, single tick mark, $new equals $old plus 1. Still PHP, must end with a semicolon. It's got to be a valid PHP code in here or things will die. Then the ending tick mark, okay? Ending parentheses for the construct, and then the ending semicolon, again, valid PHP code. The reason I'm using single tick marks is so things don't resolve automatically. $new won't resolve, $old won't resolve, but what PHP will see, it'll see the code $new equals $old plus 1, semicolon. And then at this point, once it's done looking at this and scanning it, it'll say, okay, now it's time for me to execute this code. It'll then do $new equals $old plus 1, just as if you typed it in right here by yourself instead of using the eval. And then the result is old is still 123, and new, which will be available at this point in the code, is 124. Okay. Note that in this case, again, we're using single quotes to prevent the automatic resolution of variables. Again, using the double quotes when we discussed the simple and the complex substitution, double quotes allows variable resolution. Single quotes does not. Depends on what you want to do. Sometimes you want to use those single quotes and you don't want things to resolve. Sometimes you do. If we use double quotes, we would have to need to escape the dollar signs. So for example, if I used double quotes here, and here, I would escape the variables $new and $old. So why would I escape those? Well, if I put a backslash in front of the dollar sign and use the double quotes, PHP is not going to automatically resolve the value to whatever the variable to whatever value it happens to be. So $old is 123, and it would be fine in this case to have it resolve. I don't want it to, so I'm putting a backslash there, so PHP doesn't see it as a variable. The backslash $, again, PHP won't see it as a variable. It sees, oh, this just means this guy wants this $sign to be a character $. Oops, and there's just character string NEW. Okay, that's fine. That's all character string. I don't have to replace anything. Equals backslash $. Oh, the guy again wants me to just use $. No resolution here. Oh, and here's some more string OLD. Okay, no resolution here. Plus 1. As you can probably tell, text strings will cause us some problems because of the single tick marks, double tick marks, double quotes, the resolution, not resolution, but we'll eventually get to the point where we can actually force a rescan of our variable. So let's talk about that. The goal is to use eval to force all of the simple or complex syntax variables contained in the text string, single quoted text string, again the apostrophe or tick mark, to be resolved automatically just as if it created the double quoted text string at that point in the program. Recall that we're trying to take this single quoted text string, $stab_orange for original, single quote, and then here I have my complex substitution, which does not occur automatically. Why? Again, because of single tick marks. PHP will not replace anything with single tick marks, only double quotes. Again, in this case, once the variable's been defined, that resolution will not occur, especially when I have it in an include file and I include it later on in the program. So the resolution does not automatically happen. That's why we have to do this force rescan. So we want to resolve the variable values $URL and $STTL. Here's again the values of those. $URL is again Google's website URL. TTL is just Google's website name. And we want to resolve that automatically into a new variable called $STab. So we're going to do several attempts at this, most of which will be wrong, but I'm trying to get at the point where you can look at the code and understand what eval is attempting to do, and then finally at the end of our last attempt we will get the correct results. So attempt number 1, given the following code, eval single tick mark $STab equals $STab underscore orig semicolon, again must be valid PHP code in this evals thing, and single tick mark. Well, what's the result? Well, again, we're using single tick marks, so there's no resolution whatsoever. So what will PHP see? $STab equals $STab underscore orig semicolon, and then execute that. Well, what's the result? $STab is exactly the same as $STab underscore orig with no resolution at all. Result, fail, doesn't do what we wanted to do. Attempt number 2. Given the following code, eval, double quotes now, $STab equals $STab underscore orig semicolon, double quote. What's the result? Well, PHP will see the following code, and you're going to look at this and go, why? Well, we're in double quotes here. So PHP is going to say, oops, I'm scanning this, oops, there's a $. That means this guy wants me to replace this variable, $STab, with its value. If $STab is not defined, which it may not be, it's going to basically replace that with a blank or nothing, and that's why you wind up with just nothing right here. Then you're going to have this equal sign, this be this equal sign, and then $STab underscore orig is just basically the string which we have in single quotes. And this is where it's going to appear: less than symbol, table, and so on and so forth. I didn't put in the entire string; I just put 3 dots there. Again, we're in double quotes. PHP is going to say, oh, here's another $. This guy wants me to figure out what this variable is and replace it. Cool. Okay, and it does it. And so here we go. And this is what you wind up with. Well, the result is an error message complaining about the unexpected equal sign because there's no assignment happening here. There's just an equal sign hanging out. That can't be good. Now, if you're a clever clod and you say, well, I'm going to replace $STab with the single quoted text string $STab, then PHP would complain about the unexpected less than symbol. Why? Well, you're going to see $STab equals less than symbol. There's no double quotes or single quotes around this. So, oops, that's a problem. PHP is going to get here to this less than symbol and go, what the hell are you talking about? And complain about that. So that's an issue. Result, fail. Alright, attempt number 3. Given the following code, we're going back to single quotes again, okay? But we're going to try to be clever. $STab, so single quotes here, we're not going to do any resolution, and then we're going to put in double quotes to see what's going to happen. Maybe PHP will resolve this guy because there's double quotes. And here's another single quote. So let's take a look. Well, PHP will see this. $STab, which is fine. There's no resolution because it's in single quotes. Boom. And then PHP sees the following code, double quotes, $STab underscore orig. And what happens is when it gets to here, it's going to pop in $STab underscore orig. Well, that's going to be exactly the same as the original text string. There's going to be no resolution. Again, it's just going to, PHP is going to just plop in the value. There's going to be no resolution even though you have double quotes around. That's the whole issue. That's why we've got to use this eval thing in some clever way in order to get to this forced resolution or forced rescan. So again, this is a fail. There's double quotes around it, which is nice. You're not going to get that problem with the less than symbol as an error. You're not going to get the problem of just an equal sign hanging out. That's cool, but the resolution still does not occur. Result, fail. Attempt number 4. Okay, given the following code, back to double quotes here, eval, double quotes, $STab equals, and let's escape the double quotes, okay? And let's see what happens in that case. Well, what would the result would be? Well, PHP sees this code, $STab, if it's not defined, you get nothing here, and then you get the equal sign, and you get double quotes. Okay, well that's cool. So double quotes around things, cool. The result again is an error message about an unexpected equal sign, as you would expect. Okay, the result again is a failure. Now, if we were clever clots, as we did before, and we replaced $S tab with single tick $S tab, well, what would you get here? $S tab equals, double quote, blah, 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 blah. Everything's going great. Double quote here. Cool. we got a string, and then we got a 0 hanging out here. What is a 0 hanging out? PHP is going to complain you've got this kind of 0 hanging out here for no reason. What's the deal? Again, we would get an error. In one instance, we get an error because of the equal sign hanging out. In the other instance, if we're clever and we set $S tab to a single tick $S tab, that resolve is $S tab because we were clever. Again, we get another error message. Oops, still a problem, result fail. Attempt number 5. So, given the following code, we're in double quotes here, $$. So in this case, PHP is going to say, aha, this is just a text string, no resolution going on here. Double quotes, this clever person wants a resolution here, and then an escaped quote here, so these are escaped quotes, and then our final ending quote. Well, what will the result be? Again, $S tab equals double quotes, things are looking great, blah, 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 ending a double quote, oops, we got a 0 hanging out. Well, the result is an error message, again, complaining about the unexpected 0. Similar thing to the previous slide, okay? So we're trying all these different things, and it's just not working. Again, result, fail. Attempt number 6. So far, the quotes causes problems in attempt number 4, and the less than character caused a problem, or has a potential of causing a problem in attempt number 2. One way around the quote problem and the less than problem is to URL encode these characters using the HTML special characters function. In other words, the less than symbol is replaced with ampersand LT semicolon, making it safe for PHP. The quotes, the double quotes, are replaced with ampersand QUOT semicolon, making it safe for PHP because it's not going to see quotes, it's not going to see less than symbols. Okay. But the great thing about HTML special characters is it does not resolve a $sign to anything. $signs remain $signs, and curly braces remain curly braces, which is cool. So first, let's create a variable using to hold the encoded string using HTML special characters. Now, we're going to have to decode this eventually using HTML special chars underscore decode. We'll get to that in a second. So, $, we're going to create a new variable from $S tab underscore orange. We're going to encode it with HTML special chars and create this new variable. And then we're going to use the same eval code as before, except replacing $S tab underscore orange with the underscore ENC. Okay? What's the result? PHP sees the following code, $S tab equals, double quotes, ampersand less than, semicolon, and so on and so forth. Here, ampersand QUOT semicolon, so there's no double quote. So this double quote doesn't end here as it did before, so it's not going to complain about this 0. Cool, and so on and so forth. But more importantly, $S tab has both the variables using the complex substitution syntax replaced as shown on the next slide. Now this looks a bit of a mess because we've encoded it, but if you take a look at the highlighted stuff here, here is the replaced URL, here is the replaced website name. So far, so good. Now, what do we have to do? We've got to uncode it. So we've got to decode it using HTML special chars underscore decode. Going to create a variable $S tab underscore good, and the results appear on the next slide. Bada boom, bada bing. You get exactly what you want. In other words, you force the rescan, and you have your URL here, and you have your website here. Okay. Result, success. So we've gone through all these attempts one step at a time to attempt to show you what eval may be thinking underneath the hood, so to speak. So in order to reduce down the PHP code, we have several lines going back through attempt number 6. We can actually just create one line, eval, and then S tab good is the decode of, and then of HTML special chars, $S tab underscore orange. I'll let you ponder this. This is equivalent to the result of attempt number 6. So example 5, basically a rehashing of the goodness of attempt number 6 based on the previous slides, given the single tick mark string with the complex substitution here and here. How can we force a rescan of the string? You can either do this using these 3 lines, encode the string using HTML special chars, do the eval, okay, then force a decode, and then you wind up with your replaced string, which is good. Or you can do the rather complex single line like that. And there you go. Hopefully this was informative, and thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.